Good morning, New Vintage. Come on now, would you stand with us? Let's give God the glory this morning. Heaven thundered and the world was born. Life begins and ends in the dust you form. Nothing is impossible for God, amen? Come on and declare that this morning. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Come on. Nothing shall be impossible. now. Give him praise this morning. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to New Vintage.
Buenos días. Bienvenidos al New Vintage.
Good
I
try.
don't know why they're cheering for me. You're the one who really speaks both languages.
You even spelled that wrong in the email.
Oh, yeah. Well, probablemente lo dije mal también.
Well, I have a solution for that. Let me do the Spanish and you do the English part.
Oh, yes. Alabado sea Dios.
Alabado sea Dios.
Alabado sea Dios. Praise the Lord.
Es
Yeah.
maravilloso poder estar juntos y la idea de poder compartir momentos como una iglesia unida es grande. Hemos tratado de elevar esta apuesta y hemos tratado de buscar la forma de cómo impactar más la ciudad y buscándonos juntos, trabajando juntos. El hecho de unirnos como iglesias, New Vintage y Casa de Fe ha sido un gran proyecto. Así que les invitamos a que sigan siendo parte de este gran mover.
That's right. I heard juntos. That's together, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Juntos. We're together this morning. Now, what Sergio is saying is that here at New Vintage, you can come just the way you are. Whatever you bring in here, whatever your story is, you're welcome here. You can belong before you believe. We want something for you being a part of this community. So we're glad you're here this morning. And this morning, we are in a series called Facts, Reasons for Our Faith. And this morning, we're talking about science this morning. So
Science, huh?
Yeah.
I have a joke about science.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. A neutron go to a bar and ask, how much for a beer? Bartender says, no charge for you.
Yeah. That's good. So you looked up jokes for this science thing this morning. That is so lame. I would tell you a science joke. But all the good ones are gone.
Are gone, huh? That's funny. That is funny. Why you never trust atoms?
Why do you
Because
never trust
they make it up everything.
atoms? Make up everything. It's good. Sergio, these are terrible, okay? We should apologize to the people for this, but what was not terrible was this past Tuesday night, we took 85 kids to Cal Skate, roller skating, middle school kids there. Check this out. Check out this video. This is what happened Tuesday night. Yeah. Hot.
Esto es grande, es maravilloso poder ver estos jóvenes que están siendo ellos mismos y New Vintage está buscando la forma de encontrar el lugar correcto, buscar la atmósfera correcta para que ellos puedan desplegar sus alas y puedan alcanzar a los demás como hasta hoy queremos hacerlo. Así es que hay un gran proyecto con estos jóvenes. A los estudiantes de secundaria se están juntando los martes por la tarde, los estudiantes de preparatoria los jueves en la tarde. Así que nos gustaría que gente latina, familias latinas traigan a sus hijos, puedan acompañarnos y puedan ser parte de este gran mover en estas calles, en esta ciudad.
That's right, yeah. If you know what he said, you know what he's talking about. No, the cool thing, I don't know if you know this, if you're new, if you're just checking us out, we are two churches that have rolled into one. This used to be New Vintage and Casa de Fe. Casa was here at New Vintage in the afternoons, and when we met, when I moved to town and met Adon and his family and folks like Sergio, we said, what are we doing? Let's do this together. We're better together. We can reach our community better together. And so we decided to come together. And so you'll see some Spanish around here. You'll hear some Spanish sometimes. We'll sing a song this morning that's in Spanish. And we want to impact the young people and the families we say it like this: we want to impact our next door neighbor and the next generation. And so we're doing that together. This past Thursday night, we had Inside Out, high school students. Ryan over here was beaming people with dodgeballs. I mean, hit me, Aiden hit me right in the face. And so it's not cool. It's not cool. So anyway, we also have a men's group on Friday morning. If you're a guy, if you're a dude, and you want to connect with some other guys, and just kind of figure out where your community is, where your friends are. We're here hanging out 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Friday mornings, coffee, donuts, and just some guys hanging out, connecting, and building friendships. So we'd love to have you.
Amen. Hay una gran oportunidad para que todos los hombres que quieran desarrollar más su fe, más su liderazgo, más su forma de actuar, ya sea en casa o el trabajo, los viernes a las 6 de la mañana hasta las 7 de la mañana hay un gran grupo de hombres. Todos los hombres digan amén. All men. Say amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Están invitados, pueden venir. Darren va a pagar el café y las donas.
Yes, I will buy the coffee and donuts. I only know he said that because he said it last hour too, so I know I asked him what he said. So it's ridiculous. I was just throwing that out there. We're excited. Lots of things going on. Lots of ways you can connect it. If you're new and you're like, how do I get connected? We have a QR code all over the place. You just take a picture of it, throws a link to your phone, and all the options are there that you can get connected in all different ways. Mark your calendars, though, for May 14th. May 14th, we're going to have a night of worship in this room. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do baptisms. It's going to be a really fun night, so don't miss that. Put that on your calendar. It's a great way to kick off your weekend that weekend. So, cool?
It's going to be great. Why don't you stand up, please? Stand up, and it's going to be a great morning for everybody.
Yes.
So, told your neighbor something in the second language, even if you don't know what does that mean. But say something.
Say something like está tú muy gordo.
Gordo.
No, guapo.
Guapo.
All right, let's go.
That is better.
Si, oui, la, la. We're going to teach you a new song called I Thank God. Here we go. Wandering into the night, wanting a place to hide this weary soul, these backbones. I tried with all my might, but I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond. Just when I ran out of road, I met a man I didn't know. He told me that I was not alone. Picked me up, turned me around, put my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior. I healed my heart, changed my name. Choice but to believe. My doubts are burning like ashes in the wind. So long to my old friends, burden and bitterness. So just you keep on moving. Oh, you may welcome here. Now till I walk the streets of gold, sing of how you saved my soul. This wayward son has found his way back home. Pick me up, turn me around, place my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, faithfulness, my fortress, over and over. Tengo esperanza solo en ti, mi fortaleza está en ti, tu fiel amor, mi defensa, una y otra vez. Make way through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. With the mouth of lions, bring dry bones to life. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Creo en ti, Señor. God, I believe in you. Vierte tu amor dentro de mí, tu gran poder demuestra mí. Espíritu, ven, derrámate una y otra vez. Make way through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Bring dry bones to life. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. God of the abundantly, more than we ask or think. Lord, you will never fail. Your name is powerful. Your word's unstoppable. All things are possible in you. Dios de promesas, Dios de abundancia, vas mucho más allá, Señor, no fallarás, tu nombre es igual, nada te detendrá, todo es posible en ti. Make way through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Shut the mouths of lions, bring dry bones to life. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. I believe in you. I believe. There is no doubt, 'cause I have seen your faithfulness, my fortress, over and over. That is good, amen. Sorry about that. Who was lost, but he brought me. Know his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Realize He has ransomed me. His grace you in praise this morning.
God bless. You may be seated.
Yes, you guys sound good. You look good. It's all good this morning. That's Jen Mendoza, by the way. Jen, yeah, thank you, Jen. Jen and Adon Mendoza are the ones who started Casa de Fe, and they've given up a lot to kind of roll into New Vintage, and they have been working so hard. And a lot of the incredible things that are happening here, maybe some of you know them well, but around the city, Adon's our community pastor, and they're so connected, and they have a heartbeat to reach this city with God's love and goodness. So thank you, Adon and Jen, for all that you've done and the sacrifices you've made along the way. That second song we sang talks about do what you are famous for. Make way through the waters. Make way through the challenges. God, do what you're known for. Like, do big things, God. Change our lives. And I don't know what you're carrying this morning, and I don't know what you've got with you. The big thing sitting in front of you, the Red Sea in your life that you need God to split it open and let you walk through it. But we're praying for you that God would split it open and let you walk through it. That he would do the big things in your life. And when you participate at New Vintage Church, we want to be a church that makes him famous in this city. Not because we're so great at everything that we do, but because we go and help people who have needs. That we are people who actually care for this city. So when you give to New Vintage, you're not giving to make us rich, to make us amazing, to make this incredible. You're giving to a partnership to impact this city with God's love and goodness, to make his name famous so that people in this city know there's a God who will do the impossible in their lives as well. And we're so grateful for what you give to that. For those of you that give, you're giving to things like 85 kids coming to roller skate. You're giving to pizzas for the middle school and the high school. You're giving to Starting Point books for the 35 people who are going through Starting Point, discovering who God is and what he's like and asking their honest questions. You're giving to build a 20-somethings ministry that is launching very soon, 20s and 30s and young people. You're giving to make groups better and stronger. And those of you that are older and you're thinking to yourself, well, where do I fit in the picture of this? Like I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s. I hear you talk, Darren, a lot about the next generation and the next door neighbor. Where do I fit in the story? Yeah, you know where you fit? I'll tell you right where you fit. We build this thing to where there's 20s and 30s and teenagers all over this place. You know where you fit? You're where they want to be, and they don't know how to get there. You get to tell them. Your life matters in this place. If you're older, you're thinking, I don't know where I belong. You belong right in front of some of those young people, leading them and walking them through. I'm telling you, the value of your life will be measured by how much of it is given away. You give your life away, you're going to get life. You pour your life into the next generation, it will bring you life. I'm telling you. You pour into the next generation, it'll change you for the good. You will get far more than you give away. So we want you to partner with us, not just in giving, but in giving your whole life to impact the next generation. See, they're going to start coming. It's already happening. We want you to be ready. So if you're in the audience and you're thinking, I don't know where I fit in, you email me, you text me. We'll tell you right where you fit in. We got a spot for you. We can wear you out. So don't worry that there's not a place for you. If you'd like to give today, you can do it through the envelopes around you. You can put it in the box in the back. You can text New Vintage SR to 77977. Or you can give online at newvintage.org. If you're watching online, you can give that way as well. And honestly, though, if you're new, if you're just checking us out, if this is your first time or you're new to New Vintage, you can keep your wallet in your pocket. You don't need we don't want anything from you. We just want something for you here at this place. We want a place where you can connect and you can discover if this is a place where you can find your community. So we're glad you're here. Thanks for being here. I'll be right back in just a moment for part 3 of our series, Facts Are Reasons for Faith.
Where do we come from? Is there really a God? What about other religions? And what about Jesus? How can you know for sure? Is faith just blind? Can the Bible be trusted? Am I really supposed to believe in the supernatural? All these questions are a normal part of our journey toward faith. If you're not asking questions, you're probably not even trying. But the good news, these questions have reasonable answers. So let's discover together the facts that make up our faith.
Good morning. I don't know if you got a mint on the way in. Last week, if you were here, I talked about the fact that mint wakes up our mind so that we can think and makes us kind of activate our brains a little bit. And a lot of people like that. I got a lot of comments about the mints this week. People were like, oh man, these mints, that mint thing was great. I love the mint thing. I've been eating mints. I'm pounding mints out here this week. Nobody said they trusted the Bible anymore, but the mints thing was very impactful. So I'm glad that was good for you. No, last week we were in this series called Facts. If you're a young person, you know that, on Instagram, social media, or whatever, when you're just talking to your friends, when you agree with something, you just go, oh, facts, bro, big facts, right? Or I can't even say it cool. I'm not. High school kids are here. I'm intimidated to say it wrong right now, but facts, right? Facts, homie. No, okay, yeah. Just shut up, Darren. Got it. Okay. So they say facts, right? What are the facts? So we're talking about the things that make up our reason for our faith. Like, we don't want to just blindly believe that this stuff is true. Like, how do we know if this is even real? And the reason we're doing that is because there are so many people in this world that have their doubts, right? And oftentimes, church people, we forget sometimes if you're really into church, because some people, you just have faith. You just have solid faith and you've never doubted, and that's amazing. But we forget that people are struggling through this and like kind of not really believing this anymore. And sometimes they don't believe it because of the way a church person treated them or the way that a God person treated them. And we forget that, and so then we just assume, we say weird stuff to people who have doubts. We say stuff like, "Let go and let God, bro." And they're like, "I don't believe in God." Like, well, just let go of that and believe. It's like, well, that doesn't work. And so we sometimes forget that people are going through doubts, and so I wanted to, and I've had lots of conversations with people throughout this series who've said, I want to give this to my daughter, I want to give this to my son, I want to give this to my husband or my sister or whoever it is, this person in my life who they're struggling with that. They're not sure they can believe anymore. They grew up believing, but something happened and they don't believe anymore, and I wonder if there's any good reasons to believe. And so I wanted to give us some good reasons to consider. For those that are struggling, to give you something to consider. And for those that you already believe, there's a passage that says we should have an answer for the hope that we have. Always be prepared with an answer for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. So we want to do it gently and respectfully as we consider the reasons for our hope that we have. And so week one, if you missed it, week one was all about the resurrection. And we talked about Lee Strobel. He's this guy who, he was a journalist, and his wife became a Christian. He wanted her to not be a Christian, so he set out to prove the resurrection wrong, and he came up with 4 reasons why he couldn't reject the resurrection. And they were that he discovered that there was definitely an execution. They all start with E. Definitely an execution. He was definitely dead. We know that through history. You'd be laughed out of major colleges and universities if you said we don't think Jesus was a real person and we don't think he died. We have enough evidence to prove that. We have early accounts. In other words, right after he was out of the tomb, there were early accounts suggesting that there wasn't enough time for it to become a legend. And then we have an empty tomb. We know for sure that it's an empty tomb because even the enemies of Jesus said, well, you stole the body. What does that suggest? It suggests there was a body in the tomb. Now there's not a body in the tomb. The question is, how did the tomb get empty? But we know there's an empty tomb. And then lastly, we know that there were eyewitnesses. We have 9 different accounts outside the Bible that talk about the 515 different people 500 or so people that Jesus claimed that Jesus appeared to them. And what I said in week one to start this whole thing off was, you don't prove things beyond a shadow of a doubt when we're talking history. You prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. Right? You take the evidence and you stack it up and you go, what's the most likely conclusion? What's the most likely conclusion based on this evidence? And listen, I'm just presenting the evidence for the next few weeks or the first few weeks, one more week, that it's like, well, what is the reason that someone would believe this? And you don't have to believe it if you're someone who's watching online and somebody gave this to you and they're like shoving this in your face and like, you listen to this pastor, he said there's reasons, and you're like, I don't even like him already. Like, I already don't like him because you shoved this in my face like that. If that's you, you don't have to believe. It's just something to think about. And I hope that you would think about it. And my hope is that we can go, you know what, this Christian faith thing, it's not just blind, stupid, mindless faith. In fact, there's a passage we put on the screen last week, and it says this. We'll put it on the screen again. God even commands us. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Like, be thoughtful about this. Don't just believe it blindly. Think about it. Love God with your mind. Use that brain that you have. And then week 2, we talked about the biblical evidence. Like, can you trust the Bible? Is there any evidence why you would? And what I said was, if you don't trust the authenticity and the accuracy of the Bible, you have to then disregard the authenticity and accuracy of all of ancient history. Because there's far more evidence for the New Testament than there is for all of ancient history, all of ancient Rome, there's just far more. There's just like, we looked at the chart, there's like 25,000 manuscripts that we've discovered that were very close to the time that they were written. And the other, most of history, it's like very little copies, and there's this huge span between when the copy was found and when the original was written, and yet we trust all of ancient history. And so if you want to throw out biblical history, you can do that, but you got to toss everything else out too, if you're intellectually honest with the data. And so that doesn't mean, that Jesus is who he said he was, but I always say if somebody actually gets up from the dead, he rises from the dead, then I'm going to believe whatever he says. If you can do that, then who are you? You're the Son of God? Okay. Then I'll believe that. So that was week 2, the Bible, and this week is science. And I'm nervous about this week. I did this at the 9 a.m., and I was nervous then, and they all hated me. So, no, they didn't. But, we're going to talk about, like, science and creation, and you might look at me as like, why is the pastor doing this? Well, I'll have you know, I do have a middle school science teaching degree, so whatever that's worth. So I know how to cut open a frog. Now, I've always been curious about science, but the reason we're doing this isn't because I'm a total expert on science. It's because I see so many people oftentimes sit out in the church, wonder if there's a God, wonder if anyone's ever going to talk about evolution and science and creation and could God really be there, and nobody ever does, so they just slowly walk away because no one ever addressed it. It's a little bit like talking to middle school kids about sex. The church thinks if I don't talk about evolution and creation, nobody will be bothered by that. Nobody will even think about it. In middle school, we think if we just don't talk about it, they're not going to do it. Just don't tell them. Don't tell them that exists yet. If there are any middle schools in here, I'm sorry that I just said a word that you're going to have to explain now. Just dive into evolution, they'll forget all about it. But no, the church doesn't ever address it. We don't ever talk about it, and therefore we just quietly walk away. And my hope is that maybe through having a conversation, discussion about it, we can feel confident about what we believe, that there's some good reason to believe it, that science and the Bible, science and God, they're not actually at war with one another. So I'm going to do my best to try and walk us through this idea. So here's my opening statement right here, opening statement. I'm not going to bash anybody. I just don't think that evolution is as strong of an argument as professors, textbooks, and the world in general would have us believe. Now, some of you are like, you are an idiot. Good luck, bro. Do you not know what we teach at schools? Do you have no clue that it's been proven that evolution is actually a fact and we know it for sure? I don't know that, and I'd like to tell you why, in my education along the way, I have come to a different conclusion, and you can just listen and lean in and laugh at me quietly if you think I'm an idiot, okay? So you can do that, that's okay. I want to define a few terms first, and as we get rolling here, it's a little bit like, what are we doing, where are we going, but we're going to get there. I think you're going to enjoy this, okay? So the first term I want to define is microevolution, okay? Microevolution. We know that microevolution happens. This is just variations within species. This is a labradoodle. Okay, we all know that you take a Labrador, mix it with a poodle, you get a Labradoodle, right? Same way if you mix a bulldog with a Shih Tzu, you get so we all know what that is. We get that, okay? And this one's easy, all right? We don't even have to argue about this one. We know that microevolution happens, we observe it. This is Darwin's finches. He saw the different variations in their beaks and all of that. But then he made a conclusion, he made a guess. He said, well, if we see small variations, then given enough time, we'd see massive changes. And that word he uses, the word we use for that is macroevolution, right? That's the genetic changes over a great many generations that bring about new types of organisms, right? So I'm not even concerned about microevolution. Of course that happens. Macroevolution is where all the debate kind of begins, right? That's where it begins. But the debate isn't between Bible and science, okay? The debate is not between Bible and science. The debate is it's about pursuing an unbiased, which is difficult, examination of the scientific facts and following those facts wherever they lead, right? We're going to try and follow the facts wherever they lead. I'm going to look at a few things today, let you look at them, and then we're going to talk about why this matters for faith, why this matters in a faith community, why would this be important. But to define a couple more terms, first of all, the Bible, oftentimes people say, you can't use the Bible as a science book, and I agree, it's not a science book. The Bible's history, okay? Bible's history, it has some scientific stuff in it, but we don't really use it as our guide for science. I don't, anyway. History is the study of what happened and who was there. That's what the Bible answers. What happened and who was there? And we study the Bible and we kind of look at that, and we can go to archaeology and we can discover if it's accurate, and we can get manuscripts and we can do all the work and we can figure it out, right? But then science is trying to answer the question, how did it happen? That's what science answers. How did this happen? And what I'm suggesting today is that possibly the story of the Bible, that there was a God who did it, it might be that the Bible answers who did it, and science answers how did he do it. So maybe science is just answering the question, how did God get involved in this whole process? Maybe they're not at war after all. Maybe one is about who and the other's about how. If that's the case, then we can live together with Bible and science, right? So when you think about science, first of all, there are a couple different types of science. Operational science is where you test, observe, and repeat. Test, observe, and repeat, right? I know this from having a middle school science degree. So test, observe, and repeat. That's how you do science, right? If you can test it, you can observe it, you can repeat it, you got a law. This is what we know is true, all right? Because we tested, we observed, and we repeat. Evolution, of course, doesn't test anything, right? It doesn't really, you can't repeat evolution, right? I mean, I don't know who's the oldest person in here, but you ain't a billion, right? Ain't nobody in here that's a billion. Danny Stewart's close, but that's like the closest we got, right? I mean, I'm actually older than Danny, I think, so it would make me. But nobody's a billion. You can't observe evolution. Like sitting around waiting to see if it turns into something else. It can't be done, right? And so you can't test, observe, and repeat. So it's not actually operational science to go down the road of evolution. It's more like archaeology, honestly. Paleontology, archaeology, putting together a story, finding the bones, finding the fossils, looking for clues, trying to discover it. Actually, the resurrection and evolution are actually more closely related when you come to a court case than you might think, because both rely on historical evidence to come to a conclusion, not on scientific testing. Now, you can say, well, there's carbon dating and age of the earth, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, can you prove that evolution is really a thing, right? And so that's the first thing that I want you to know, is that no matter which argument you fall on, which side of the argument, whether it's God, creation, or evolution, you're going to need a miracle. You're going to need a miracle because neither one of them, there's no answer in evolution that tells you exactly how we started, right? So the problem of origin is a problem, like how did we start? Either one, you're going to need a miracle, right? Here are the two miracles up for debate today, all right? I'm still in my opening arguments, okay? We're going to get there. Here's the first one. Evolution says it's from goo to you by way of the zoo. That's how you got here. There was a primordial soup of goo or something, and then they spawned something somehow. We don't know exactly how, but amino acids built and built and built and built, and over enough time, there was an animal, and then there was a tiny little animal, and then that animal, and then that, and we just went up, and then there was a zoo of animals, and then eventually us. That's how it worked, from goo to you by way of the zoo. That's a miracle, though. We're going to get to why that's a miracle in a minute. That is a miracle, okay? And it's possible. And again, I said this in the last hour. I'm not going to be making fun of science. I'm not going to be making fun of evolution. In fact, maybe that's what God used to do it. I don't know. But the point is that you're going to need a miracle, whichever side that you're on. And the other one is just that God did it. That's the creation one. So there was a cause. And so I'm going to talk through some different ideas here and explain all this. And this is the fun part, hopefully, maybe. It feels like a classroom. Maybe you think I'm a nerd, but here we go, okay? The first one is the origins of life. This is what I'm going to talk about first. I'm going to give you some reasons why I think evolution isn't as strong of an argument as we've often thought it was. And the origins of life is the first point. See, for a long time, scientists believed that the universe was eternal. Matter was eternal. It had always been here. God wasn't eternal. Matter was eternal. Things were eternal. But through things like the second law of thermodynamics and the expansion, the way the world is expanding, and some different testing that we've done, Einstein and that kind of thing, theory of relativity, we know that actually the earth had a beginning. Everything had a beginning, right? And so everything's expanding. Everything's expanding and getting bigger. If it's expanding, that means it started somewhere, right? And if it started somewhere, that means it's not eternal. It means that something had to cause the very first thing, right? And so for a long time, scientists would kind of laugh at the fact that there was this uncaused God that you think caused something, that made something from nothing. There's a God who made something from nothing. But now they have to, based on the evidence we found, they have to say that nothing made something from nothing, which is a harder argument, right? And they've done all these experiments where they'd create this box and they'd put all this stuff in it, and they would try to strike it with some lightning, and then there would be an amino acid. The amino acid would fall out, and they'd realize they had to catch the amino acid, because if not, it would fall apart. So they would catch it in a safe little box to preserve the amino acid. And they were saying that, see, look, we can bring amino acids, the building blocks of life, we can bring it into fruition. But you see the problem with that already, right? In order to create an amino acid, you have to create an amino acid. Right? You got to build a system. You got to put something in the system. You got to strike the system with something, and then it's going to create, and then something has to protect that thing that's life. And so the question is, where did all that come from? Like, where did that come from? Like, who created the system that protected the beginning of life so that when life started, it was protected? Who did that? All the things that people are doing to try and prove that there is no God, that it happened without God, without a creator, they have to create it to prove that there's no creator. And it's silly, but I'm just saying, like, you can use your mind. You don't have to just blindly believe everything that's taught. And then the second thing is the irreducible complexity. This is where I'm going to start using words that make me sound really smart. Irreducible complexity. A guy named Michael Behe wrote a book called Darwin's Black Box. And Michael Behe, he said he used this concept of irreducible complexity. Like, there's certain things in your life that are so complex that if you took anything away from it, it wouldn't work. He used a mousetrap. And he said for a mousetrap, you wouldn't have a block of wood and catch some mice, and then add a little trap and then catch more mice, and then add a little spring and catch more mice, and then add something else and catch more. No, you can't catch any mice until you have the full trap, right? If it takes any part of a mousetrap away, it's no longer a mousetrap. Your eyeball, your heart, the things in your systems, all kinds of systems in the universe, you take any part away from it, it no longer works anymore. So it's irreducibly complex. It's so complex, if you break it down, it's no longer there. So to say that it somehow existed and kind of made its way there doesn't even work, because it's too complex for that to happen. The next one is biochemistry. I don't know if you know this, but DNA studies have come to the conclusion that life only comes from life. You can only get life from life. If you have something that has no life, it cannot produce life. And so the question is, if there's this goo and then now there's life, how did life snap in from nothing to something? How did you get life to begin? Because only life breeds life. Life breeds life. DNA can only make DNA. You can't make DNA from anything but DNA. So where did the DNA come from if they're started with a little tiny little something? How did DNA get here? How did life get here? It's just a question. And again, it doesn't prove anything. It's just a piece of evidence that we throw on the pile and go, I don't know. It's a good question. Beneficial mutations, right? The other ones, we talk about evolution relies on millions of beneficial mutations. And we all know the only great beneficial mutation is the Ninja Turtle one. That's like the only real good mutation that we've ever discovered, right? No, there aren't that many beneficial mutations. There's millions of terrible mutations that we know about. They're ruining things, but there aren't very many beneficial. And to suggest that beneficial mutations through the centuries are what caused us to become better and better it's a guess. It's a hope, it's a prayer, but it's not evidence. The fossil record. Now, we should have, because of all the transitions, right? I mean, we went from goo to me and you. There must be millions Millions and millions and millions and millions of transitional fossils that we've discovered. But if you go to the largest fossil museum in North America and Canada and ask them to show you the transitional fossils, they will tell you as soon as we find one, we will put it in here. And there should be millions, but they're not there. There's a few that they've come up and it's like, well, I think this one is. And somebody took a orangutan head and put it with a human jaw and said, look, we found one. It's like, well, you lied. And then there was one that's like this girl, this kneecap they found. They put it on a girl and later they said, well, the kneecap was several hundred feet away, but maybe it was her kneecap, you know. And, you know, this one was like a bird with claws, but it was kind of walking around. Then, a paleontologist is like, no, it's a bird. And so there's attempts, but even the fact that you're just trying to make attempts to find transitional fossils and like make some fit in there is evidence that we don't have what we should have. There's a gap in the fossil record, and honest people who are scientists would have to say, yeah, we haven't found what we suggest should be there. Again, this doesn't mean that they're lying. This doesn't mean it's fake. It just means I'm trying to follow the data wherever it goes. I'm just trying to follow the data. And if the data suggests that there's no transitional fossils, maybe it's not true. And then I got two more real quick. Anthony Flew. Anthony Flew, if you don't know him, he was the leading evolutionist in all the world for 50 years. His dad was a Methodist minister. He walked away from faith and decided he was going to chase science down. What he did for 50 years was to teach at huge lecture halls, much bigger than this, about evolution. And at the end of his time, towards the end of his time as being a scientist, he finally got in front of a lecture just like this, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, I have something to tell you. If I'm honest, I have worked for 50 years trying to discover the things that I hoped would be here. I believe that we would find it, but I have come to the conclusion that we will never find what we're looking for. And I have to tell you, as a man of honest and intellectual study, I'm going to say that there must have been some other being that did all of this. He didn't say that it was the God of the Bible, but he said it couldn't have been nothing. There had to be some other source to get this all started, in the estimation of the leading evolutionist in all the world. And then lastly, morality. See, morality is a reason to believe in evolution. I'm telling you, if you don't want to have any morals, you just start believing that your life doesn't have any authority. That you're just a bunch of random collection of things that somehow came together and life doesn't really even matter. Because this is what a leading scientist said one day to a guy that came in, Dr. Carlson. He's a creation scientist, and he was teaching at this university. And here's what the guy listening said. He relates that the head of the science department came up to him after he got finished, and he said, what you're teaching is not only good science, it's basic common sense, but I have to admit to you that I'm still going to teach evolution. I'm going to teach evolution because it's morally comfortable. As long as I believe I'm nothing but an accident evolved from slimy algae, that I'm nothing but an animal, I can live morally any way I choose. I can go to bed with any girl I choose. If there's no God and I'm simply an animal evolved from slimy algae, there are no moral consequences. As soon as I admit that there's a creator, then I become morally responsible to that creator. Frankly, I don't want to be morally responsible to anyone. And man, I can relate to that guy. I don't either. I don't want to be morally responsible to anybody. I want to do what I want to do. But the truth is, I believe that there's a creator that we are morally responsible to, and I think he has good in mind for us. But guys like that, people who think that God's just out to get them and control them and not let them sleep with the people they want to sleep with, they don't know God. They know somebody who taught them about God, that made them feel bad about God, that yelled at them about God, that told them God hates you when you do bad things. They don't know God. Because the God that I know, that I think many of you know, that God wants good for you. See, the reason I believe that that maybe God was in the middle of this is that I think the evidence stacks up that way. And here's the truth. The truth is that both creation and evolution, they're going to require faith. Doesn't matter which one you believe, you got to have faith, because you can't see what happened for either one of them. But this is what God said. Hebrews 11:3 says this. By faith, we understand that the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. In other words, the uncaused cause, that was God doing it. That was God in the middle of it. He was in the middle of making all of this And we have to have faith in that. You could put your faith in evolution, but you just need to know that you have to have faith because we don't know what happened. The evidence doesn't always point that way. Here's the reasons, quick reasons why I believe in evolution. Number one, the flaws within the evolution explanation. There's too many flaws. Number two, all of life points to design. You guys are builders. You're designers. You're creators. It's in you to create. You build businesses. You build companies. You build families. You build organizations. You build fun. You build entertainment. We build. We create, right? That's in us. Everything in life is, the building blocks of life is that we're creators. And I believe the Creator put that in us. And that's why we are the way that we are. The second law of thermodynamics, that just says that things are actually falling apart, that there's entropy. There's this thing where things are not getting better. If you leave a house out in the woods, it rains on it, it hails on it, it storms on it, the house doesn't get nicer, it gets worser. Right? The house gets worser. Doesn't get nicer, it gets worser. Things are getting worse, not better. But for evolution to be true, for the theory of evolution to be true, the theory has to fly in the face of the law. The law of nature says it's getting worse. The theory of evolution says it's getting better. And the two have to bump heads at some point. And you have to go, wait a second, if it's getting better in theory, but it's getting worse in reality, how can this one be true if that one we know is true? Again, I don't know. I'm not, again, middle school science. That's me, middle school science. So I can't say for certain that I know everything and I know all the, I'm just saying the evidence, if you look at it, I think it matters to use your mind to go, I don't know if this is entirely true. And here's my closing thought for the day. This is why I'm talking about this. There's something in you. There's something in me, in every one of you. There's something in you that thinks you matter. There's something in you that thinks you have value. There's something in you that wants to have purpose. Some of you in here, you want to be TikTok famous for a reason. Like there's something in you that just you want people to notice you. You want the world to see you've got what it takes. You want men in here, you want your wife to look at you and go, oh, honey, you're so fine. You just make me melt, honey. Like you just, oh, I love you. Like you have something in you that thinks I'm valuable. Women in here, you want your man to look at you and go, I got the best woman on the planet. Like this is my girl. Like those of you that are single, you're like, I just want someone to tell me that I matter. Like that I'm worthy of them being in my life. Young people in this room, you're thinking to yourself, what am I to do with my life that's going to give me value and worth and purpose? There's something in you that thinks you matter. If you're just from goo, where'd that come from? So that's my question. Where does your sense of purpose, value, and meaning come from? Why you got that? Why every week, every day do you wake up hoping that your life will be worth something today, that it will be valuable today? I suggest that you matter because the creator of the universe spoke life and matter into your very being. And he made you on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. And when you connect with him, you seek him, you find him, and you become close with him, you will find that your life has more value and more purpose than you thought possible. Let me pray. God, we're all on a search for purpose. And that was a lot of like scientific jargon to get to the idea that why do we matter? Why do we feel like we matter? God, I pray that something in this week's idea of science would connect with somebody. I pray that somebody in this room, watching online, I pray a group of us would realize that our value and our purpose is tied directly and connected to the fact that you're a creator God who makes all things good, that you're for us and that you spoke your value and your purpose into us. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Y'all, thanks for coming today. If this is your first time or if you're new, I'd love to give you a gift in the back right here at our VIP section. And if you want to get connected, you can do that through a picture. So the QR code. So have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.